Or, there it is.
First up, approval of minutes for March 20th. Anyone like to make a motion?
Joanne, I will. They look fine.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No? Okay. Minutes, yeah, they look good to me too, so thank you, Lynn. Reports, Joe, did you look at the treasurer report?
Yep. We have at this moment in time $20,696.43.
Yeah, we haven't done much except for recording secretary.
Yeah, I believe that budget report does not reflect the deposit payment that we made to DKA. I was looking at it. That check has been cut and sent, so she must have sent the budget sheet before she made that payment.
Okay, yeah, I just got this on Monday. I always wait till near the end. I got the report on Monday.
Yeah, through the 15th.
Okay, I don't have much over the last month. We did have our 65 Main Planning Project meeting on March 27th. And we did attend a ribbon cutting at Superior Storage on April 4th. Few of us were there. What a nice place. They did such a good job with that. Moving on. New business adoption of trade names. We have one that's located in Missouri. It's the Health Consumer Action Network. They are an advocate for consumer health choice and policies, and they don't want to be listed on our website. And the other one is Digital Mama. That's
Yeah, I tried to go on her website and it didn't work. So, because there's another Digital Mama that has the same website.
Oh, really? This is Jane Howell on
Yeah, I know,
Drive.
Jane. So I was anxious to look at her website because she's down the street from me, and it wasn't working. So just wanted to let you know.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't have a website on the paper, just have an email address. But yeah, I'll have to check that. So, and her thing is digital products and sales, so I don't know exactly what that entails, but TBA membership, as of today, we have 78 listed on the roster, and the group is currently working on a succession plan for inducting future officers. Next, we have citizens' comments pertaining to agenda items. I assume we're quiet.
There are no unaffiliated citizens in the Zoom room.
Okay. Old business, we still have an open slot for an EDC alternate. I did bring it up at the TBA meeting also. So unless anybody has any comments on that, we'll get right on to new business, which is marketing revitalization of downtown core. And Todd Kellenbach is here from DKA for his first meeting with the commission. Hi, Todd.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Okay, how are you doing?
Good. So you guys can hear me okay and see me okay?
Oh, yeah, great.
Great. So first of all, thank you for awarding DKA the contract, and I look very much forward to working with you on this project. Tonight, I thought I would just share with you kind of an overview of the scope of work and some of the questions that I have to get started. So I have about 4 questions to go through, and I was hoping that maybe we could do a little open discussion tonight if you have time during this meeting. It seems like you guys are moving pretty quickly.
Well, we didn't want to keep you waiting, so.
Perfect. I appreciate it.
The agenda is usually quick, and I did push it through.
Okay. So you guys can probably see the document on the screen.
Yes.
Just for a little background, I visited Thompson last Tuesday and did a walking tour as well as a driving tour with Tira and Renee. So I got some background for some of the stuff I've been reading. I've been doing a lot of reading of materials, including stuff that EDC has put together, the Plan of Conservation and Development, and some of the other historical documents that kind of paint a picture of what's going on in Thompson. So coming out of that, I just, again, in speaking with Tira and Renee, we really, in terms of our goal of my engagement, or my firm's engagement, we want to create a comprehensive marketing plan, but that will have a focus very specifically on business development in Thompson, with the emphasis on the 2 development districts that you have in place. Of course, there are a lot of building blocks that we can leverage. The new brand's already been done. There's a lot of initiatives in town that I've kind of observed in my, in the short period of time I've been on board. But we really want to focus on that aspect. And of course, some of the other spin-off activity in terms of marketing is, perhaps it will support tourism and other initiatives, and sort of, as they say, all boats rise with high tide, if you will. But our focus is going to be on business development. The next piece of this is to create an inventory of assets for Thompson in terms of available commercial and industrial properties, infrastructure improvements, and initiatives and incentives for development. A lot of the work that's already been done included a SWOT analysis, of course, that was part of the previous marketing consultants' work. So I have all that. I just thought we would kind of focus in what's going on, what do we have to market, and what are some of the steps that the town has taken that we could kind of latch on to kind of put this news out there. The second piece of this is matching up target businesses with specifically to these development districts, picking your brain a little bit on the types of businesses that you think are both most desirable as well as most suitable for success in developing in these districts. And then finally, how do we reach potential business owners and developers, investors outside of Thompson? I think you'll do a great job of certainly reaching, the captive audience, your Thompson residents and business owners. But how do we go beyond that, and what sort of partnerships can we leverage to do this? And that will be sort of the outline of the marketing plan. Fill in the blanks, make recommendations, and then as we go through the process, present those back to you for further discussion. So if we might, I'd like to kind of pick your brain a little bit on bullets 2, 3, and 4 tonight, starting with inventory of assets. I know of these properties in terms of 65 Main, the River Mill Complex, things of these nature. I kind of know of some of the properties, but I want to have your take on what are the most viable and what are the priorities in terms of where you would like to see development in these districts. And anyone can jump in at any time.
Yeah, our biggest one is the River Mill that you mentioned. It's slow going for that one, because that can hold a whole lot of stuff, businesses, condos. We have a few other properties they're just stalled. Directly across the street is one, what we call the old Twin Shirt Shop. Was supposed to be businesses. That property is still empty, but it has a recent ownership. We have some more that are run down, like the old Village Hardware. Yeah, we don't have a lot available along Riverside Drive, which is our main street.
I'd like to ask a question here. Yes, those are the focus zones down there around the River Mill where, yes, we are putting a lot of eggs into one basket. But also, I think what we want to do is see how we can tie in those other parts of town that are drawing people in, whether it's the airline trail or the Natchug Epic and other bicycling opportunities, or whatever else we can dream up and make happen. But to have an interconnection as part of how we would like to see that area marketed and developed. I believe that's what I'm hearing. And I absolutely, point four, we absolutely have to have somebody with outside money, but who can share our vision in order to make this work. These assets have been hanging around, and people who live in town know about them. Nobody's interested in them, or nobody has the resources to be interested in them. How do we market them? I liked what I heard you say. We need to be able to develop that network. But the strength of what we want to market as our town's asset is outdoor recreation.
So
I don't-
Charlie, if I can just interject a little clarification here, the scope of work that we asked DKA for was a marketing plan for those two districts. So it doesn't mean that we ignore the outlying districts in terms of the connection, but they have specifically been tasked to do the marketing for business development in those two targeted districts.
Agreed. But the kind of business that he might start to think about inviting in, maybe specialized bicycles, or maybe you know, we have opportunities. We're looking now. Now what we're looking for, outside developers to come in and match our vision. Yes, it needs to be at the River Mill. That's beyond our control, as Brian said. A lot is waiting for that to happen, and it's moving slow. And it's a lot of eggs in one basket, and we know that.
But a lot of, when you ask what types of businesses, there's a lot of stuff that we could bring in. They don't have to all do with our airline trail and our bicycling. I mean, essentially, we have nothing for retail in town. So personally, I'm pretty open.
We could use more lodging, more B&Bs, more.
But still, they need a reason to come here. Right now, we have no retail, so.
I just want to say that I think we've just jumped ahead a bit. Target businesses is good. That's the second thing. But going back to assets before we move ahead to that, and you probably covered this, Todd, with Tara, and I know there's difficulty with some of these areas, but we do have the Botticelli, the empty lot there, which we've done some studies about maybe doing some storefronts in addition to housing apartments in that area. But it's getting someone who wants to step up and buy these properties and develop businesses and invite businesses into it. Because if we do have spaces, okay, but no businesses are going to move in if we don't have a place for them to go. And maybe this type of marketing might make it more evident to a developer that there's a possibility to develop this property. The other one being the Extra Mart property further up the road, which is another nice location, a building that seems to be in good shape, but because of various roadblocks, we haven't been able to get a commercial sale set up to be able to bring businesses in.
By the way,
once we do that, we open up these possibilities, and I do agree with some of what Charlie said. When I first envisioned the Belding Corticelli property, I was thinking of things in terms of lodging. I was also thinking in terms of, gee, what a nice place to put a shop that's going to rent or sell outdoor equipment like kayaks and bikes and things like that. But going to Brian's Yacino's point, it's not just about the outdoors. My question is, what do people leave town for the most that they need? The first thing that comes to mind, and I don't want to mention chain stores, and I know there's been a lot of contraction with this type of store, but a pharmacy. We have an older population and we don't have a place, a pharmacy type outlet for people to go. There's always a need for more food places, at least the right ones with the right budget, and not just another pizza place. But we have to think about if someone's leaving town to go to Webster or to go to Putnam to shop or spend money, what are they doing there? And the third, I don't know if it's the third, the other area for businesses, we're thinking retail, but again, going with the older population, what about offices? Do we need to have the availability of more space for lawyers, for medical facilities, which ties in with the pharmacy again, because we have an older population and people that might have difficulty getting out of town could certainly appreciate and utilize those facilities if they're in town. I know my doctor's office is down in Dayville because there's no place closer that takes patients.
Not with an MD.
Yeah, and part of that, you mentioned infrastructure, can't say infrastructure improvements. Yeah, we do. My biggest thing with infrastructure is our cell service in town. And that's a tough thing for current businesses who can't even use their phone at their business.
Yeah, cell phones.
Well, I broke down yesterday in front of Milltown and I have zero, couldn't even call anybody for help. I had to walk a mile before I could call somebody. And our businesses, the current businesses in town have the same issue.
Yeah,
Oh.
just for a little context there, Todd, for whatever reason, the only truly reliable cell network in our downtown is AT&T. Pretty much, and I think there's one other that does okay. All other carriers, for whatever reason, the coverage is terrible there.
They used to be better. The cell companies have made changes that kind of knocked us out.
Monopolies.
What do you have, we talk about cell coverage, what do you have for internet or fiber? What's the provider in your town for that?
We have
Spectrum,
Spectrum and we have Frontier.
Frontier, okay.
right, Frontier for the phone, yeah.
I have,
Most of the people are using
Charter.
Spectrum, I think.
Spectrum.
What did you
I
say,
have
Jordan?
Wait a minute.
Say that again, Joe, you're breaking up.
I have Spectrum for
Right.
my internet. I don't have Frontier.
No, Frontier does offer it though, Joe. The
Frontier
Frontier
yeah.
is Frontier.
Frontier's still rolling out. I know they were still putting up their lines. They haven't even made an offer on my street yet, but I know they were out here putting lines up over the last 6 months.
It's funny, Todd. There's some things that happen in this town historically. Cell phone is one of them.
Mhm.
Ryan says it used to be better. When they came in to do cable television for this area, I know that there's a law that requires that they provide public access to the
Polls?
community to come in and produce local shows. And it was voted down when the cable company came in and never revisited. We're missing something.
Hmm.
And I don't know why. But I've raised the question several times and nobody's ever answered me. I've raised the question in this forum and directly in town hall.
But anyway, that's going back infrastructure, phone service is important to incoming businesses as well as internet service. And Spectrum is okay. We don't have a lot of choices, like Charlie said, Frontier. But the phone's the biggest thing.
Well, with my phone on T-Mobile, I can drop in on anybody's Wi-Fi. Unless it's password protected. I can make phone calls in the library and at the town hall. But I don't think I could make a phone call if I was in the parking lot and didn't have the Wi-Fi.
Right.
It's a detractant. These kinds of things. And by the way, is John Sharp going to reopen? Do we know? Does anybody
No.
know?
He's working for
Yeah.
Putnam Chrysler, so he's good.
So there's another commercial property in town.
Well, it depends what the owner is going to do with it, because John didn't own the building.
Ah,
Right. And he said now the owner didn't want to fix it. That's why John is now working at, what is it, Kia in
Putnam Chrysler.
Putnam? Yeah, the Chrysler place.
So
Yeah.
that comes back to the point earlier where we either need outside money to come in and share some vision. There's a pharmacy there, why not? You
Well,
know,
yeah, there's
something
a lot
like
of things we could use. We could use a pharmacy. We could use a repair shop like John's. Like I
could.
said, I'm open to a lot of,
But it's a new property that is so new on the market or so new on a potential market that most of us didn't even think about it. I drove by it today and that's what made me wonder.
yeah, it depends on the owner. He's still apparently up in the air, but
And that's been a problem. We've had the guy that owned the Beldings Mill property that Brian just talked about. The owner has been up in the air. He hasn't done anything. All these delays have been because aren't they local people? Who owns the
Yeah.
Beldings? You know, local people just sit on it. We need somebody to come in here and shake it up. That'd make a great location for a convention center and a small shopping center.
Somehow I
That's
think with the
36
right
acres in
offer-
there.
With the right offer, they'll probably sell, but nobody wants to make that right offer, and that's one of the reasons we have Todd here to look at the marketing and to see how to make it more attractive to potential businesses and buyers.
Are these
Yeah,
the kinds of things you wanted us to talk about, Todd?
Yeah, you're covering it. Just for my clarification, Belden Corticelli is the mill that was knocked down, correct?
yes.
Yes,
The mill was knocked down and very recently the stairway collapsed and is laying on the property. The exhaust stack, the furnace exhaust is still up. And it has some brownfield issues.
Mhm.
I don't think they're as big as a lot of people seem to indicate. I mean, you could put a parking lot over a warm, you know, not where there's something really toxic, but if it's, oh gee, somebody spilled oil here 50 years ago, put a parking lot over it. It seals.
Well, yeah, and we're okay. We had studies done and we had a good presentation 2 or 3 years ago on that. So it's
Yeah,
not,
we have all the environmental assessments on Belden Corticelli. The background work there
But I'm
is in
mentioning it for
hand.
Todd. I'm mentioning it for Todd. That's why he asked the question, so I'm trying to answer it. We do have all the background stuff, Todd. You're right. We've done a lot of spade work on this stuff, but we don't know where to go from here.
yeah, it's kind of a big circle, you know, you want to attract businesses, but they want to know that there's something going on in town.
Mhm.
So the more, even a Dollar General, I think, helped us. A lot of people didn't want it, but it was better than that empty lot to show people that, yes, we're open and maybe it's a place worth visiting to start your business.
Right. So, you guys are definitely right where I was hoping you would be, but when you think about, for example, types of businesses, think about those that are dependent on drawing customers from Thompson and surrounding areas, i.e. retail consumer, and those that are not.
Right.
A small manufacturer could easily come in and not have to, they could sell internationally, they could sell online, but it's different from a professional service business like a lawyer, a doctor, a pharmacist, etc. And then, you guys touched on some of the other assets in the town, such as outdoor recreation. And again, that creates a kind of an ecosystem, right? For a bike shop, if you will. But again, there's got to be enough there in terms of customer traffic to support that. So,
That's
I would say
growing.
there's no right or wrong answer at this point. It's just how do we prioritize? And that's where I think we're going to try and match properties that you'd like to see developed in your wildest dreams in a perfect world with the types of businesses that would go into those properties. And again, making sure that we are kind of putting together the 4 P's of marketing, right? It's product, place, price and promotion so that we have somewhat of an inventory to talk about and we have some activity in town to talk about that shows momentum. So, you know, as you point out, a Dollar General, it may be not everyone's cup of tea, but that's growth, that's development, right? That's a
Right.
business that obviously looked at it and not objective, and, you know, not subjectively, but objectively to say, what is going to make us successful in this town? Is it, you know, can we get employees to staff it? Is there enough customer traffic to support it? Can we run the franchise the way we like to run the franchise, or do we have to make modifications for Thompson that are specific to that? So, you know, it may seem like a, well, okay, you know, Putnam's got a Dollar General and there's plenty up the road the other way too, but you know what? It fills in the gap, and I understand they're going to probably start to sell, if they're not already, they're going to probably sell some food products out of that too, because that's where Dollar General does go into smaller communities and can find it, you know, can expand its niche.
Yeah, and they do have food products. There's a lot of people in town that use that store
Right.
for their everyday, their milk and their bread and their soda and laundry detergent, cat food, and some medical things. Their aspirin and their cough syrup. It's actually pretty well stocked.
Mhm.
And you know, again, it's not what everybody wanted, but it's all we have. We have a lot of food places, restaurants. I don't know, was this pointed out when you did your tour with Tira and Renee?
I've looked through your
Restaurants?
I've looked through the inventory of businesses in town that you have on the website, as well as in terms of driving around too. You know, and I think you probably have enough pizza, as does many small towns in Connecticut, but
Yeah,
And we have another one coming.
yeah, you'd probably like to see a little more diversity between pizza and
Yeah.
onions, you know, which is the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think too, if you're not, some of the thought processes might be too, if you don't have a supermarket, even a smaller one, can you aggregate that with other individual businesses like a bakery and a fish store or a meat store and a produce store that kind of together, if they're clustered a little bit, would aggregate what a grocery store offers, or what you know, things that are fresh that you can't get from certainly Dollar General. You know, I think some of the synergy too is 65 Main. You know, when you think about working with your school district and developing a, you know, a farm to fork concept that's going to support local employment, jobs training, and provide new services that perhaps residents haven't had before, you know, different types of food, locally grown, fresh, locally prepared, et cetera. That is something that shows momentum, and it feels like, you know, another business of that type would benefit from that. This is why in larger towns, you know, you see restaurants cluster. You know, if you go to, I don't know if you guys get this way, but West Hartford Center is a mecca for restaurants. You know, it's one on top of the other, and there's probably some out your way as well too. Store Center has a lot of restaurants, for example, in Mansfield. So one begets success with the other. This is why they cluster car dealerships too. You mentioned a car service place that's going out. When they go side by side, one can feed off the other. So again, you also have sort of two arteries too that I looked at. I mean, you've got the main drag, which every town has its main drag, that where you know, retail and service businesses cluster. Plus you have some, you know, traditional downtowns that are kind of off the main drag. People will actually have to take a left or take a right off to get into those. And that's where your two other districts are. They're sort of nestled away. They're former downtowns that could stand revitalization. But again, you don't want necessarily 4 lanes of traffic, 4-lane roads going into those, correct?
Right.
So that's what we have to look at in the aggregate is variety is going to be good, because it's going to give people more choices. And then looking at these ecosystems that you have in terms of infrastructure and other types of business activity that people say, yeah, I think I can make it work here. And then we'll talk about incentives later, the tax abatements and all those other things. But I think, you know, on the surface, it's a matter of, you know, painting this picture of here's what we have to offer and marketing that, you know, marketing what we have to offer now versus too much pie in the sky of what could be.
Right. Okay.
Sorry, I'm taking up too much time talking. I want to listen to you guys.
No, it's fine. We want to hear you too, Todd. So
Okay.
your
Yeah.
thoughts are important.
We've been building up to this for months. So, you know, it's important for us to hear your ideas. You mentioned something about clustering small shops, specialty shops like butcher shops and other things like that, which is a great idea. We were kind of thinking of something like that with something called the 11th Village, where
Right.
we were hoping to get businesses at a hub. That didn't work for a lot of reasons, mostly timing, the pandemic and what it did for bringing people together. I see that there are such shops in town. There's places where you can go and get really fine cuts of meat and other farm products, but I can't. I'm
Yeah, they're
having
not
trouble
clustered.
thinking of bringing them in. But there's an inventory of properties within this area. We have location, business coming in, doesn't have to rely exclusively on Thompson's population if they can tie into the interstate highway web. And that's what you're going to find in our early studies with our SWOT, is that our location was the opportunity, and great opportunity when you think about it in the bigger 50-mile zone. How can we? I mean, I understand. I hear you saying that you see what we would like to do for the type of business we bring in, but those, I think, are our assets. Mostly is location and outdoor recreation, which is picking up momentum. And there are some pretty good restaurants in town. But it's
Yeah, we're okay for eateries. I
Yeah.
could see I could see if somebody wanted to bring a business in, because you mentioned clustering, and our businesses are spread apart. You know, Fort Hill Farms is over on one end of town, and we have the fresh meat over Quinnebog area, and we have Black Bears. If somebody like Sonny's came in and wanted to do sections, just like they do at the antique stores where people rent out space. That would look good along our main street if we had a store and that store incorporated everything that's on the outskirts of town.
The other thing to think about is what's known as, and you probably know about this, is a regional food hub, which is a building or a couple of buildings side by side that where local producers can come and sell on certain days of the week. It could be 7
Right.
days, could be weekends or whatever. It's kind of a Four Seasons
farmers market.
looking for.
It would be on the idea of a farmer's market, yeah.
Yeah, Four Seasons Farmers Market. So it has some structure to it as well too. And that, those are in towns like Winsted, Connecticut, which is up my way, those are very successful. It does take some infrastructure in terms of having to have the building, utilities, et cetera. And one of the key ingredients too is to have a manager. You have to have consistency. You can't, open one Tuesday, then not open the next Tuesday if you say you're going to. So that's
right.
one thing to think about too. And that at least gives that's a lower barrier to entry for a provider than having to commit to leasing and store fixtures and all that other stuff too. So maybe you start with some of your major farms, Fort Hill and the other, and say, is this something where you, even though you have your own facilities, you want to sell on your own sites? If this was available to you, would you support it? Just again, so that you have choice. You want to have enough variety for the consumer in that regard. So that you don't have, 4 people selling lettuce, just for example.
Interesting, but it sounds to me like this is a private investment that comes in and sets
You
up
could.
the building. It's not something that EDC would say.
No, it's not.
We'd like it. So, Todd, can you help us find somebody with enough money to share the vision? We can do it.
Yeah, that's why I put in that last question, we're talking about potential owners, developers, and investors. I mean, so we're not, as far as I know, in my discussions with Tara, there's none of these initiatives are going to be funded with public funds, quote unquote. We're not asking for more taxpayer dollars to support any of this stuff.
That's.
Yeah, no local
yeah.
taxpayer dollars, public
Right.
funds in the sense of grant funding perhaps.
Correct.
But yeah, not coming directly out of the pockets of people in town. They're
Right.
never gonna vote to support it.
Correct. Yeah, that would be somewhat unusual, I think, in my experience, although are any of the properties we're talking about town owned at this point?
No.
Just
Okay.
65 Main, right?
Oh, yeah, 65 Main, but that's obviously currently under development, so.
Right, right. So that's the
Yeah.
exception to the.
And that's the problem. If you toured around town, the building directly across from 929, like I said, the River Mill. And then the
Mhm.
buildings behind it that are falling down used to be a hardware store, used to be a dance studio. Used to be good viable properties and now they're not.
That brings up a good question to, when we ask about town properties. Maybe there's only one right now, but are there any that we're overlooking that are within this corridor? Like that, like John Sharp's shop, that suddenly, we drove by it and didn't think about it. I don't know what other town properties there are. There's the town hall and the school and not that the park isn't accessible there, but it is.
We will have that building over at Riverside. Jan's building that he's building, and we're adding on to where Thompson Liquor is.
Mhm.
There'll probably be a storefront there if Thompson Liquor moves into the part that's being constructed now. I don't think they're gonna use the whole thing.
Well, Charlie or Todd or whoever was asking about town-owned properties, and those are still all
Yeah.
private.
Yeah, well, yeah, we don't, yeah, everything like Charlie said is private, and that's why I brought up the old hardware store and everything. It's private, we have no control, and they're just being run into the ground sitting,
Right.
which is
But
frustrating.
Todd raised a question about town property just in conjunction with that question. And I can't think of any. I just wondered if there were.
Yeah, I can't think of any more.
There's certainly not anything that isn't either town-owned for a reason and a purpose, or the town probably owns a couple of dinky little parcels that over
Mhm.
the years got repossessed, but there's nothing of any size, that I can say.
Yeah, we have Trainwreck Park.
Well, we have
Yeah, yeah.
Veterans Park. We have Veterans Park, and we have the gazebo and that park.
Yeah,
And we're looking to put something off the back of 65 Main, whether or not, whenever we can put a bridge in. But those are outdoor recreational opportunities. I've never, got to tell you, I've never walked over and looked at the pickleball court. But I saw a sign for one where the J.C. Penney store moved out of Sturbridge.
Hmm.
And they've apparently got an indoor one there.
yes, yeah, it's right
But
next
they
to the Mexican
We do a lot
restaurant.
of indoor, in the old malls. There was one out in New York that I saw too. Another town-owned property though, if I assume it's still town-owned, Tara, and it's not in the Route 12 district that we're talking about. It's still up here by exit 53, that land that was supposed to be a visitor center by Wilsonville.
Yes.
Oh,
Wilsonville
yeah,
Road.
yeah.
That's got awesome access to the highway. And
That's got great
supposedly on the other side
potential.
of that is that house that was a commercial property that just got sold last year, I think. That was, the plans were on file in town for a convenience store, gas station type thing there, but it's
Yeah.
still being used just as a residence.
The convenience store application came before inland wetlands long time ago, 5 years
Oh.
ago. And I guess the permit is still good, but he never did anything. But on the other side there, you're right, Brian, that's a gem. And somebody's developing in from the Worcester side up above that. Interesting. And it's just sitting there. It's town property and it's just sitting there. There's others.
The only problem with that is it's not connected. You know, it's not part of our corridor that we're trying to
Correct.
develop. I mean, it's still a good piece, but
Right, but I just brought it up in terms of town property that.
oh
could-
yeah,
But
No,
like
it's
I
a good point.
recognized in my statement, it's not what Todd is dealing specifically with marketing the corridor.
Yeah, but put it down on the bottom of the list. If he talks to somebody about building a hotel, maybe that's something. I'm not gonna get any money off of it. Just it's sitting there doing nothing.
yeah.
Yeah, just to retrace that a little bit, I only asked about town property. If there was any that was, you know, zoned appropriately and was available for sale or lease, that would put it on the priority list, and that, you know, that might, to market that, you may want to use public funds. But what we said was there's no public funding for any of this marketing, and there's really no priorities in terms of town-owned property, which does create the challenge you pointed out, is, you know, we can't control our own destiny if there are other owners. And that's this partnership questions, like how do we work with those people who actually hold the cards at this point to make sure they're kind of in sync with the vision that we collectively have for development. You know, one of the things that was interesting to me when I toured, and we haven't touched on this yet, is you know, in your downtown Mill development district, you have the former St. Joseph's School coming online with 40 rental units, right? And then directly across, there's parking right there. Directly across the street was a building that I think is going to have a brewery and has another service business in there right now.
Yeah, it's got a hair salon in
Hair salon.
the walkout basement level.
Yeah, and the funeral home.
Okay, and then one block up, you have 65 Main. You know, you've got the conversion of the former bakery into the storage units, even though that's not, you know, something that is a destination, it's business, right? And it looks like he's invested a ton, or he or she has invested, you know, a ton of money into that building. New bays, we walked around at new bays, et cetera. And
it's a great place.
yeah, and then you go up, you cross the hill, you come up toward the River Mill. So to me, you have a village that's potentially developing that, if successful in the next reasonable period of time, would replicate what it once was, you know. And that's momentum. There's things happening there that I think create a marketing story, you know, even though we can't control all the pieces here, and it's visible. And it creates a vision that I think is a little bit more tangible than saying, hey, just being general and say, hey, come talk to Thompson. We've got something for everybody in terms of available property, you know?
Yeah.
So it gives some credibility to this story. It also expresses what makes your town a little bit unique, because, you know, let's be honest, people who are going to come and talk to you are going to be comparing you with other towns and other sites. I mean, that's the way it goes.
Yeah, you're
Todd,
right.
to answer your final question, or your final section of the question in target audiences, I think you're planning on going with me to the commercial realtors meetup.
Yep.
That is a good forum to meet some of the local investors and developers. So not like the national scale guys, but the micro regional scale guys. So that is a good opportunity to make some of those connections.
Yeah, and I'm going to learn how they like to receive communications too. It's like, you know, how should we talk with you? What's effective? You know, do you want to have direct interaction with folks at the town? You know, is it send me something? How do we get into your connections too? What is your network, and how do we, you know, get on your list for the things that you talk about when in your next conversation with a potential developer or investor who says, geez, I'm looking to relocate a business or start a business. that Thompson comes into that conversation immediately. These people are gatekeepers to a broader community.
Yeah.
Maybe we need a mailing list or a group that all of us are subscribing onto, so that when any communication for us to consider comes up, we know that it comes up to all of us. Confidential stuff, but we need to find some ways to get it out in a hurry. And I'm also remembering, Todd, didn't you say you do social media updates on a weekly basis? Do we have to give you all of those social pages TBA has, or the town's website, or Trails Committee, or any of those?
Yeah, I think what you should consider is you have your website, you have your EDC section, and you should make sure that whatever content we produce gets put up there. We were looking at yesterday, for example, little airline trail. I think it's the hiking map or bike map. I mean, that was a pretty cool piece.
The Z map is what he
Yeah.
means, guys.
Yeah. So that's just one aspect of it. But you have a start. It was a little brochure I saw on your website too about how to go through the motions with the town to develop or start a business. That could be cleaned up a little bit as well too. So we have a hub of information, right, that we can put on the website. I would suggest we stay digital. We do an e-newsletter versus a mailing newsletter, because it's a lot less costly. It's a lot more efficient. There's no printing, there's no postage. And if we can collect email addresses, we can add to that list. We can version it too. So again, we have to be careful. If you want to be careful with messaging, that this group gets this message, this group shouldn't, we can version that and segment that. As far as social media as well too, is, I would want to look at connections, right? So the town has a Facebook page and an Instagram page. And as we were joking yesterday, I think Animal Control is the group that uses it most to their advantage. So it's a matter of, do we need to separate? At least they have some following. There's the group of people that follow that, and right, there's some network there. So maybe we should get, if possible, let's just add more business development messages to what you have. Also consider the other groups in town. As I was talking with Terry yesterday, there's probably a couple of community groups. My town calls it Burlington Chatter, or Burlington Unite. It probably has a name similar to that, where people Thompson together. Yeah. So is it viable to kind of share information to that group? I think it is, because certainly they have a connection to Thompson. But again, let's remember, we also want to leap outside of town too. So how do we get into that bigger? How do we throw pebbles into that bigger pond, or get ripples into that bigger pond? And that's where this commercial realtors group is one way of doing that. There's also regional chambers of commerce and others that we can hope to leverage as well too. And Tira has those direct connections.
Dan Bennett, you've been quiet tonight.
You there, Dan?
I'm just absorbing all this. I don't really have any input at this point.
Dan, by the way, is the president of the Thompson Business Association, Todd. That's why I put him on the spot.
Okay, I wouldn't have known otherwise, so thank you.
I'm willing to help in any way that I can, and I say that a lot, and usually I follow through. Usually we get good results, so.
I mean, I guess I can say that our website, the Thompson Business Association website, and our Facebook page is pretty active, and we're always working on making it better. So that might be something you want to tie into as well.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree, Dan, that in the last couple years, you guys have definitely put the effort into it, and it does certainly seem to be paying off.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, no thanks to me who doesn't use it.
Facebook is the only platform that I use, and there are some groups that include Webster and Thompson, and I don't know if it includes Putnam. There are, quiet corner kind of things that have a wider attraction base. And the airline trail has a really active group pushing things. So anything that relates to bicycle or pedestrian safety goes that way.
Can you guys think about any business success stories in recent years that we could point to? What I'm thinking about, just as draw a parallel, so you have a picture in your mind, is if you ever look at local bank commercials, they're highlighting businesses and how they helped out, and so it's stuff like that. Like what businesses may have come to town or grown in town that you would say, hey, this is somebody we should highlight. That's paints a picture of a successful business.
The William Mason House and Anya's. There are people who were from this area but invested in the area and have high quality projects that they put together. Those are the first ones that popped into my mind.
Yeah, is the Mason, is that lodging, the Mason House, or what is that type
They
of
do
business?
have lodging, they have events, but they also have occasionally they open up the dining room for tea
Okay.
or other things like that. It's a B&B.
Oh, B&B, that's
and they and the Lord Thompson Manor up here on Thompson Hill both focus on wedding parties. But the people at William Mason House bought an antique house that was falling apart and pumped a boatload into it. It's beautiful.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
interestingly, we do have a little corner of the wedding industrial complex, mostly centered around Thompson Hill, but sneaking a little bit in the other direction towards West Thompson Dam. There's another smaller wedding venue there as well. And they do communicate with one another. I don't know that I would say that they are super proactive about being involved with the town. One of those gentlemen is more active than the others, and that's the owner of Lord Thompson Manor. He does occasionally do things for us when we ask, but he has engaged with me in some sort of 30,000-foot view planning discussions. Really thoughtful guy.
Mhm.
Again, we're creeping out of the scope of this campaign, but it is something that does exist within Thompson that does seem to have some legs.
Yeah, and I think of places like Max Catering.
Yeah.
Over in Quinebaug, because he started out as a small catering business and it grew and grew, and then he started opening his restaurant limited hours, and now he's open pretty much full time. It's a small place, but really successful. And that's at the tail end of the corridor.
Okay. And I, maybe among this group, there would be someone who would offer, some sort of testimonial about the town was helpful and made it easy to go through the process or whatever. I'm hoping that's the case in at least one of these.
One other success story is at the Speedway, where it's an older business, but this new generation really did a lot of refurbishing, and they're starting to get viable in important ways. I will say this though, and I mentioned it last month, the day of the Natchog Epic happened and nobody was staying at the Lord Thompson. So this point about how do we get our businesses on board with what we're doing is the issue that it's a tough nut for us to crack.
You know, it's another success, and I don't know if the town had any involvement. Neil Patel sold his Thompson Liquor to his cousin, but he took over that rundown one in Quinnebog that always had tumbleweeds blowing in the front of it, just behind Pit Stop. I mean, that place, he's always got cars there now. There used to be nobody there.
Neil's a
Um,
great option, Brian, because he does come in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission. He has several times with the expansion of his plaza there.
Yep,
And he comes to talk to Cindy and to me all the time. I would say, and he's very articulate, you know,
Yeah.
young guy, forward thinking. So that is a good call, Yacino.
And he's got 2 businesses in the corridor.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like Tira said, that plaza is still expanding. Thompson Liquor is gonna go in there. From what I understand, I don't know if it's gonna leave the current Thompson Liquor empty, or if he's gonna have a monster
I
business.
think he's got additional business opportunities there. Again, it came in front of inland wetlands a couple of years ago. And he just couldn't move it forward when he wanted to. But he's gone all the way over to Plum Road, and he's got different things going on, and I can't remember the details.
Yeah,
but
that's okay. It's just we can see something happening.
Yeah.
Hopefully he doesn't do another pizza house because we have enough.
Yeah, a distillery.
I'm glad you brought up the Speedway because I was going to ask about that in terms of, obviously it's seasonal, but what kind of spinoff that you get as a town from that? Is there a motorsports category or not? Is it all self-contained there? Do the spectators come, get out of their cars, go into the Speedway, get back in their cars and go home, or do they stop and do anything else?
Well, that's part of it. What Charlie keeps alluding to is, yes, they do have an active motorsports track. They have a
That's
huge
the
flea
Natchog
market.
Epic.
No, the Natchog Epic
Is
is a
biking.
once
Yeah,
a year
that's
bike
bicycle.
race.
That's bicycling.
Okay.
They launch from the Speedway.
They have
the-
cars there. They have drifting there. They have sports car rallies.
Mhm.
They do a huge auto flea market the first weekend in November. They used to do Warrior Dash, but to Charlie's point, people would come in even with their motorhomes and stay on site, stay 3 days and then leave. So, we need something in town, more retail, more something to get them downtown.
or
Let them know that we're here.
or a better way to invite our local business community in, get them on board ahead of time. This is
Yeah,
what
we do it.
I
We do
remember
it.
Todd saying
We
last
do it
month.
directly to them, Charlie. Some of it is going to be up to the businesses because we tell them when
Yes.
it's coming.
Well, we need to find a better way to energize them. Todd mentioned
Yep.
this last month. It was one of the points that really stuck with me. It sounds like he understands what we need to do. It's going to take us a while to get it going,
Yeah,
but we're trying to move this way ourselves, and we're just not confident enough.
it's all in the marketing. Do we do flyers? Do we do better social media? But like you said, to light a fire under them, all we can do is, let them know that Speedway's doing an event.
So in the specific case of the Speedway, Todd, I would say there's two real challenges that exist in terms of tying it to what we are doing. And one of them is sort of psychological distance. I-95 may make us a great commuter corridor, but it does bisect the town. I mean, the town is physically huge.
Yeah.
It's like 2 or 3 towns worth of land.
Mhm.
So the psychological gulf between East Thompson and whatever, everything that's on this side of I-395 is real. And they are a little they are very self-contained. They're offering a lot of services on site to their customer base. That's one challenge in connecting more directly to the Speedway. And I go over there periodically and you know, we talk about stuff, but we haven't bridged this gap ourselves. The other thing is a little bit chicken and egging. We probably could get more traction to get them over here if more of those neighborhood scale, hospitality scale opportunities were already in place. So it's a which comes first kind of thing. So again, I think if we're looking at the scope of the contract, we can have those assets in mind as things we want to reach out towards. But the base issue is still, how do we develop this corridor and to satisfy what needs? So if we're talking about the Speedway and a stated goal that we have, and I'm just being hypothetical here, is to get the people who go there to come here, then we have to create the come here first before we can ask the
Sure.
people who are already going there.
We
Right.
have a lot of the here for them. At the Speedway, the interaction with the town and how helpful we were when they were refurbishing the intricate track, the old track. That's part of what Todd was asking about it. What did the town do to help them to succeed? That's what popped it into my mind. You're right, though. It's the I'm over here, you guys are over there. Well, not well, yeah, even Brian. Okay, but that's the thing. The highway divided us that way.
Yeah, and we're divided in villages too. I mean, Thompson proper doesn't know anything about Quinnebog. Quinnebog doesn't come into North Grovenordale.
Yeah, and people up in this neighborhood don't know that they can go over to Fabian and buy beef.
Right. So
know.
tying all that together, like that's why I was saying it'd be nice if we had, like, Jim's Village Hardware used to sell, he had consignment, the local honey, the some of the local products he had, and so did our Father's Table. Have a place for all the local products, and then you would know about them, and then you could go to Fabian if you wanted to. But it would be because you saw them in the downtown corridor
Yeah.
of our Father's Table Village Hardware.
Well,
We
that's
don't have anything right now that ties that together.
We got the eggs, but they're all in one basket. And now we got to figure out how to get them back to the chicken. So we can
I
redesign
don't
this
even try to
town.
follow that one, Charlie. Those poor chickens.
It's on me. The 11th Village, though, speaking of internet and web pages, usually we talk of this later. If you go to the town's web page, to the economic developments page, it's still inviting people to get ready for the 11th Village. So these are
Oh, I didn't
things
notice that.
it's
Okay.
still there. But at any rate,
Renee sent me a note late in the day today that the EDC paid needed updates. She didn't say what, so I'm gonna guess that's one of them. I'll talk to her tomorrow. I've got some time to take care of it.
okay. Well, but that's part of the discussion that Todd brought. And you guys know me. You give me an idea and I run over it like a
That was some of those things. Yeah, Tier and I had this conversation yesterday. Like, I'm like, some cool things I saw on paper. The tell me about this 11th Village. Tell me about this, train wreck trail. So I have some background on that too, because they did seem rather unique to me. And I think, as we know, not every idea is a good idea or a feasible idea. And if we have these opportunities to kind of highlight certain things that are on the, on a trajectory that will go forward and have some permanence in your community, that's what we would do. So it's not just all, what's the shiny new tool in the toolbox kind of thing.
Hmm.
But again, I see a lot of momentum in town just by some of these other things. I mean, 65 million was just a really exciting project to me, and hopefully that continues to be successful, and or TIRA continues to be successful in getting grant funding, so you can get that one, on the front burner as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
I mean, it ties together a lot of aspects of the town. Employment, your young people, business activity, other partnerships, whether that's with Quinebaug Regional or whatever that might make that successful. And just like your location, if your businesses see the opportunity to appeal to a regional community, not just the town folks themselves, along that corridor, that just makes the traffic count that much bigger. If in fact you can, those are main arteries. I do see some difficulties in maybe getting people to get off 395 and 95 if that's not part of their business to stop in Thompson. But again, if they're already on the state roads, then again, that's probably where we're going to concentrate our efforts to make sure that we're highlighting businesses that are very visible from that perspective, in addition to those downtown districts that are a little bit off the beaten track, as I mentioned.
Yeah, you probably know, but the problem with our business activity is that you don't see most of them. We have about 500 active businesses in town, but they're in a garage, they're mobile, they're people either haven't the need for a storefront, or they don't think they can afford one, or we don't have one available, or they don't want to grow the business large enough to have a storefront. Yeah, so that does make us different than a lot of the surrounding, like Putnam, that has, 1,000 visible businesses.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Just, my town population about the same, between 9 and 10,000. It's about 3,000 housing units. We have over 500 home-based businesses. Employees of 1 to 3, and those aren't gonna increase the tax rolls dramatically by attracting more of those necessarily. Plus, that's more of an organic growth kind of thing. But we just passed a signage ordinance that these businesses can put a small sign on their mailbox if they so choose. We had to get a maximum and minimum, no offset lighting, all that good stuff. But again, it's an opportunity to reach out and help those businesses as well too, because you could have a one-man band that's doing $500 million in international business. You never know. And why would you, right? Unless that person is a member, an active member of your community.
Yeah, it also might give them the incentive to grow it and eventually need a storefront or something more visible, hire more people. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I'm gonna write all this up, obviously, but I'm thinking in terms of types of businesses. You do have some, we use this term cluster. I'll position it a different way, but you probably have an agriculture cluster, you have a manufacturing cluster, a service business cluster, whether that's professional, lawyer, doctor, etc., or other types of services, dry cleaners, pharmacies, whatever that happens to be. No dry cleaners, because that's kind of a thing of the past. Nobody wears suits anymore, including me.
Not to mention everything that can be dry, that says dry clean only, actually reacts better to being actually cleaned, but that's a whole different story.
Right. So I'll just retract that. Take that off the recording.
Okay. I was gonna open one too, but now you changed my mind.
And I'll tell you what nobody wants is something that used to be a dry cleaners.
From the chemical stuff, yeah.
Oh yeah, they're brutal.
So
Yeah,
what
we
else?
had-
Are you
We
guys?
had a laundromat at one time that went pretty well too. Jim's Village Hardware. He was a good guy that looked around, saw a need. He opened up a soft ice cream stand for the summer. At one point, he opened up a laundromat at one point. And we got a lot of activity within the town with those little businesses, including his hardware store.
Interesting you should say that, Yasino, because that is one of the things I've been talking to Neil about
Oh,
for quite some time now.
Ice cream?
No, a laundromat.
laundromat.
Ice cream would be great too. Hey, as you guys know, for years I've been desperate to convince somebody in Thompson to open a Suds and Duds. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because they're so fantastic. There were a couple of them when I used to live in Chicago, and they were hopping all the time because everybody has dirty clothes and everybody likes to have a burger and a beer. It's a fantastic concept. I would love to see one here.
Yes, that would go good in the old our father's table.
Yeah, that would go good in there, wouldn't it?
So we're just gonna spread that idea, Charlie.
So you guys have about, I think it's about 400 units of rental housing that are going to come online, new rental housing that are going to come online in the next couple of years. Potentially 300 at the River Mill, 60 townhomes on the Putnam line, and we know about 40 in the St. Joseph School. It's going to be interesting to think about what types of businesses those folks are going to want to take advantage of in Thompson, because I don't know what the projected population growth is if all those get built, but let's think about 800 more people living in town, right? So that's a pretty significant jump. What types, if you were gonna escape to Thompson from Worcester or Hartford because it was so much more affordable, you're not going to go back to those communities unless it's once a year, you're going to go see your doctor, your eye doctor, whatever it is. But for your everyday stuff, what are these folks going to want, and how can the business community kind of fulfill those needs so they don't drive over to Putnam to get those types of things?
Yeah, so it would be handy to have a supermarket or a mini mart and car repair place just for small car repairs and maintenance. Get your oil change instead of going, into Webster or Putnam. Like Charlie said, depending on the clientele or the residents, something that offers a pharmacy or some first aid things. We do have plumbers, electricians. We do have a dentist. Furnace repair. So we do have some of the trades in town, but not much regular retail, except for Dollar General is really nothing to speak of.
We're pretty lousy with convenience stores. There's a convenience store every mile or two, and some of them are packed within a mile. Todd, a thing that just occurred to me, as you were talking about the housing aspect, would it be useful to you in building this campaign if I put you in touch with, at the very least, the developer for St. Joseph School?
Sure.
And maybe the town, any of the three big ones, the townhomes and the River Mill. Now, the River Mill is probably the furthest out because that's so complex. But would you envision that in your campaign as having those testimonials to say, hey, for those looking at housing, we expect these units to be available in this time frame?
Yes.
Because I can certainly make those connections.
Yeah, that would be great.
Speaking of housing, buildings that I thought were vacant, but they're old mill buildings, and they're between 3 rows and downtown mill pizza shop.
Right. There's two big buildings there. Yep, Charlie, I know all about those. There's two big buildings there. So soon there's going to be an 8-family and a 12-family available for rental. So that's a lot of units that are all going to probably happen around the same time.
I don't think Tom's got it on his radar right now. This he just read off of, because this is new stuff.
What's the address on that one, just so I have something to call it?
It's on Route 12. And it'll be, as you come out of the town hall parking lot and turn right, and it'll be on the left in behind where the fire hall, is located, just a little bit north of there. A
Yeah, there
couple
were
of
four
buildings that
houses.
are being refurbished.
There was four of them. They're all identical, and each one of them was an 8-family, and they were built around the turn of the century. And two of them had been rehabbed over the
Yeah.
past 20 years. And then last year, I happened to sell one. It was an 8-family, and then the one next door was an 8-family. And then I understand that owner went for town approval to convert the attic area into 4 more spaces. So he's got 12,
Wow.
I believe, approved. So
And that's additional housing in this corridor.
correct.
So, good.
Wow. I didn't even know about those, Joe.
Yeah, that was nice. And now somebody mentioned laundromat. I don't know if the landlord's going to be putting washers and dryers in any of those units. So yeah, a laundromat would be an awesome thing to have right in that area.
Yeah. Well, I know Jim used to get a lot of business.
I like
With
that
his,
idea.
it was a small place, but it was always full.
We used his.
Well, it's
machine.
another one of those daily needs that right now, if for whatever reason, you either don't have access to that in your residence, or it's shared and it's inconvenient, you have to go to Putnam or Webster in order to fulfill it. It's a daily life need that we cannot fulfill.
Right.
Those are the things that drive me crazy. Because I mean, really, the lack of them is taking money right out of the pockets of the people who live here. Every extra dollar spent in gas, every extra hour lost in travel, those are real costs that are hard to see for people for whom that's just a minor inconvenience.
Yeah,
Um,
not only that, if they do go into Putnam or Webster, do their laundry, they also might pick up lunch. Buy their gas there, like you said, they're using gas, they might even buy their gas in the neighboring town. So it's got a little bit bigger impact than just laundry too.
And Todd, the other thing we haven't talked about a lot, and I should have talked to you about I think I sort of mentioned it a little bit as we drove by the building. Thompson has very friendly adult use cannabis regulations.
I remember that, yeah.
Right, and we do not have a licensee in town. We have one structure that has an approved special permit for the use, but no licensee tenant. And since the state took away the caps by population, to me, that is wide open. And again, it's just revenue that is not only flowing out of town, it's flowing out of state. Because particularly in Thompson, the access via 395 and routes 12 and 131 to the Massachusetts line, where there is a cannabis dispensary every other block, is it's a factor. I've had some not entirely temperate conversations with the state's DECD about that, and how we could use a little boost at the state level to sort of keep that revenue in state, and they don't seem particularly impressed by the arguments. But to properly market that, I think would be important. And that is absolutely doable within the corridor and better suited to the corridor than to most other parts of the town.
Wasn't there that one building, Tira? I remember it maybe had a red.
Yeah,
exterior.
yes, that's the one. And that's the one that's got the special permit approved
Okay.
for the use. But unless something has changed in the very, very recent past, no licensee as a tenant.
Right.
And
You
I've
didn't
made
go
several
lottery.
attempts to connect interested licensees, and they just haven't panned out.
Didn't they select who got the licenses by lottery?
They did, but the lottery was not a real lottery. The whole thing was somewhat catastrophic. The state, in my personal opinion, really cocked it up. Instead of looking to the model of a state that has already done it successfully, they decided to just invent some structure of their own, which has not resulted in the kind of equity I think they wanted it to. So,
Made in the General Assembly, I bet.
well,
Yeah, that property was approved because again, it's on the river. It came in front of inland wetlands. And he got the approval on the property with the intent that's what he was going to do there.
Yeah.
He's not really gung ho pushing forward. I think he's waiting for the lot for an opportunity to get the license. He's done some modifications of the plan, but nothing lately.
well, I have some thoughts, Todd, about other places in town where that would be suitable.
Oh, there's
Uh,
several. There's several. where-
So I wouldn't, the point being, I wouldn't be too married to that one facility. It just happens to be that that one facility has an existing special permit approved.
Mhm.
So that bureaucratic hurdle has already been crossed.
Can you go state to state? I don't know enough about the regs, but if you're operating in Mass, do you have reciprocity in Connecticut, or is it a whole different a whole different thing?
I believe, and I am not super conversant in how Connecticut set up some of the rules, but I believe that at least at the outset, it's all supposed to be coming from within the state. In other words, your grow facilities are,
Okay.
your
that's what it-
suppliers have to be either in-state or have a major in-state partner. So there is no, and I could be wrong about this, but that was my understanding, is that they wanted to create a closed Connecticut ecosystem
thought.
for the adult use cannabis.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about the billboards that I see when I head, for example, 84 East. As you get to the Mass border, it's like 9 more miles, 10 more miles, whatever, and they list companies that I'm not familiar with. But there are a number here in Connecticut that we could just put this list together pretty quickly and at least do outreach to them, I would think. Fine Fettle being the one that I know because they just went into another community where I do some work.
Yes, anything we can do to get our regulatory structure and availability in front of a cannabis license, a competent cannabis licensee,
Right.
I'm on board.
Okay.
It grinds my gears that I wrote the first regulations in the state and we have nothing.
I feel like a lot of those companies, even out of state, though, if there are big enough companies, big enough players, that they have the money to come in and do something separate, if, like they.
Yeah, if they're allowed to, or whatever, sure.
Right.
That's why I asked. Is like I don't know the state by state regs, but if you grow it in Connecticut and you're allowed to operate in Connecticut, that would be a more finite list, I would think.
Yeah.
There is some kind of limitation on the interstate allowable commerce or distribution. And I don't know exactly what it was. Like my concerns when I wrote the regulations were affirmatively saying from go, yeah, come here, we're going to treat it just like a liquor store.
Mhm.
That was my priority. The ins and outs of the statutes around it, I'm not as solid on for sure.
Is there what we call it, a retail or medical or whatever? Is there one in Putnam or Webster?
Webster has one.
Webster has them. Webster has a grow house. And
That's Mass, obviously, so that's different. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
and Putnam has at least one retail outlet. They may have more at this point.
I'll do some research on that.
yeah, it's something that we have to be careful how we advertise that we're looking for that type of business. not everybody in town is thinking that it would be advantageous. Of course, maybe.
Actually, Charlie, you may be interested to know that when Han Youssef came for his special permit, some of the usual suspects were in the room for the public hearing. I was expecting them to do their usual negative Nancy act. Oh no, there was only one person who spoke against the entire time,
Yeah.
possibly two, but it was overwhelmed because look, it's just not much of a mystery. We've got a lot of middle-aged old stoners who live in town, and I'm sure that they would much rather get their gummies in town than out of town. It's a much shorter drive home.
Yeah. Oh. Just goes to show you never can tell.
Yeah,
Especially-
I was surprised. I thought we were going to get a lot of pushback and we really didn't get hardly any.
I guess it's a libertarian aspect. Don't give me any regulations. Libertarian?
It could be financial too. It's like Kara said, that they are aware of money leaving town, leaving the state.
Yeah.
It's 8:00. Does Todd
Mhm.
want to wrap this
Yeah.
up, or do we keep going?
I was just gonna offer that up to say, I know if you guys typically end at 8, I won't keep you because there'll be obviously other opportunities to have these discussions, and there will be. So you'll be hearing from me, and I'll be seeking your guidance and input again too.
Please,
Particularly if you have other stuff on the agenda. I don't want to keep you.
please take these 4 bullet points and kind of expand them in an
Yes.
email to us.
I
So
will,
that
and then
we
you could,
can-
yeah, I would appreciate that if you want to type notes under that and send those back to me. That would be very.
Yeah. That way we can fill in the gaps.
Okay, I'll put 1 per page, and you need more, just hit
And your footnotes, what you already have come up with, so we're not reinventing
Okay.
your wheels.
yeah, I'll recap what we talked about tonight. That way you'll have a
Good.
uh,
Thanks.
rolling document, if you will. Thank you.
Let's make this work.
Yeah, I hope you thought this was useful.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Like I said, I hope I didn't ask too many obvious questions, because they're just
no.
just not obvious to me. So like I said, I need to kind of see it, hear it to internalize it. Thank you.
Now, the only dumb question is the one that we refuse to ask, thinking we know.
And
We're the
obviously,
system.
Todd, you have access to me during office hours all the time, so.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks a lot, Todd.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Todd. We'll talk to you again.
Okay, have a good rest of your evening.
You too, thanks.
Okay, take
Night,
care.
Todd.
Good night.
I think that went well.
Yeah, I've been very impressed with the quality of our conversation so far. He took a lot of time with me and Renee on whatever day that was, last Tuesday, I think.
Tuesday. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we
He
did a
said
foot
Tuesday, anyway.
tour. We did a foot tour of the whole downtown loop. And then he and I drove up both ends of Route 12 and up to the line on 131 and back, and sort of pointed some stuff out. And he asked a lot of good questions, and some of that was repeated here tonight, but I think what's good about that is if he hears the same things from you that he hears from me, that means that it's top of mind for everyone. Some things we'll approach differently, and he's going to want to hear all that. I'm pretty optimistic he's going to put together a good final product for us.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Yeah.
Is everybody okay if we move on, finish up the agenda? You have anything
As you
to
wish,
add?
Mr. Chairman.
Well, in case, just in case somebody had anything else to add about our.
Yeah, if we can wrap it up in maybe 10 minutes, you think?
There's really not much else. This was the big one, so we can move right on to grant applications and updates, and Tara can let us know about the Kubota grant.
Yeah, so ECCD, as you guys all know, is one of the organizational partners on the 65 Main project. And Valerie Clark actually had forwarded to me a link to the Kubota Hometown Pride. It's not really a grant, it's more of a contest. That has to be led by a 501c3. So ECCD did submit an application essentially on the project's behalf. I wrote it and more, and I passed it back and forth until we had a good draft. If our proposal is selected as a finalist, and they'll select 2 finalists from each of 10 regions across the country. If we're selected as a finalist, we're guaranteed an award, but then it goes to like a public voting thing, an online vote. So they will announce the finalists on August 1st. And then from the 1st to the 14th is the public voting. Now, there's no way to know how competitive this is. I'm sure they get tons and tons of applications. What I do know is that we have a tremendous amount of background material. I didn't even have to send most of it. But what I also know is that the Trails Committee has a Kubota trailer, and there was a question about the connection to Kubotas, and we were able to answer it and send a photo montage. So I think we're pretty well positioned. We'll find out, but that would find, so if we get the money, we will isolate between either $10,000 or $50,000 worth of work on the landscape plan from 65 Main. And we've sort of carved out the area that we would target. So we'll see.
Yeah, thank you for that. Anything else on grant applications?
Well, I think you guys, already know we did not get the CIF grant for the second time. The next round's going to open on the 29th. I've already had 15-minute one-on-one with DECD. They will open up scheduling for 30-minute one-on-ones with DECD after they open the next application period. So I'll schedule that. I do have a conference call scheduled with State Senator Gordon tomorrow at 4:30 to discuss the 2 prior applications and what we can do to strengthen our position. I happened to talk to him when we were at the ribbon cutting for Superior Storage, so I bent his ear about that quite a bit, and we set up the con call. What he did tell me was that he had definitely selected it as a priority project and lobbied for it directly. I haven't spoken to May. I'm sure she did the same. I have a little trouble getting in touch with her directly sometimes. So we're going to crack this nut. It's just a matter of when. And I'm going to keep adding more money to that application until they finally give it to me. If you think it was expensive this time, wait till you see the next one. And we are not at the top of the range of what is being awarded. I think the city of Bridgeport got $22 million in an award this round. I'm only asking for 3.8, or maybe now 4 even.
Yeah, that'll teach him.
That's right. So that's the other big one. Everything else is either resolved or underway, like Trainwreck Park. We're just waiting to get our bids and open bids, and then that'll hopefully go to construction this summer. Janet and I have some concern that it's so late in the season that we might not get a bid, in which case we'll have to go back out and maybe adjust our time frame to maybe do it early next year and get the bids now. I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
The Trails Committee authorized covering the overrun on the cost on that. I was a little disappointed just now to hear that it may be too late to get bids for this year. Hopefully now she will devote the time to have this ready to go out in bid form. But Tara, recently when you were talking about 65 Main Street, you said something about keeping cost at $10,000 or less for ease of selecting vendors. Did I remember that right? Is this also being done up?
Not related to 65 Main. That was related to this marketing campaign. There's a threshold of $9,999 at which we have to go through the full rigmarole of having the bids opened by the Board of Selectmen, blah, 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 blah. So I had Todd take $1 off his contract so that we would come under that for
Now,
this project.
I knew you had mentioned it and I thought it was a great idea, and I'm wondering if we can get components.
There's no way to do that with Trainwreck Park. It's too complex.
Well, thanks for all you're doing to get it done. Just, I don't know if I'll be around to see it, but thank you.
Yeah, well, that and 929.
Well, we only have 2 years to expend those grant funds, and this is the first year. Next year's the second year. So we will get that done. And it's kind of like the CIF grant in that if for whatever reason we missed construction season because it took us so long to get our green light to go ahead and post the bids from the state, we'll repost and we'll say this bid is for next season. And we'll just deal with it that way.
As long as we can point to a document to say the state held us up, sure. I'm just so frustrated when things take.
Let's move on so we can finish up. Not much left. We have progress for upcoming events. We have the Turtle Art Classic Car Cruise, April 27th, 10 to 2. For the hopefully the Bryans can all make it. We have the Maker Fair coming up really soon on May 4th. Can always use help on that, by the way, volunteers. I know I'll be there Saturday morning to help set up. Summer Concert Series, June 29th, July 13th, July 27th, August 3rd, and the Town Yard Sale, July 27th, and Community Day, October 5th. And next month, I'll put the turkey trot on there, Bri. I forgot to put it on this time, I'm sorry. The final is the 65 Main planning project update. The next meeting got rescheduled to Monday, the 29th, 6 to 8 in the town hall. And this is starting to talk about developing connections between the 65 Main project and Turtle Art's Career Pathways program.
Yeah, Melinda and Chef Fran and their agricultural consultant, Eric, and I had a call on Friday. So Melinda's given me some bullet points to put a simple agenda for discussion together for that. I am really going to need the Board of Ed members and the staff and faculty members and the parents and the students who are involved in this project to do a lot of talking there. I am not qualified to develop an academic curriculum. I'm going to need help.
Yeah.
But we've got 3 months to hammer that out. So.
Okay, and that's it. Last up, we have comments by commission members. Anything you'd like on the next agenda?
Yes, I want to see how we can get outreach into the community for a cultural arts committee or commission or whatever to start a vision, a better vision for the programs that could be offered in town. Perhaps we can have a public meeting where we can have, cookies and coffee like we did before and talk about it. And I know years ago, the Trails Committee got started because of outreach that just from within the community itself.
Okay.
Rousing approval.
Yeah. All right, well, if everybody is set, we can, next meeting will be May 15th.
I am on
Yeah.
vacation that week. So, you may want to ask Amy if she will host the Zoom that month.
Okay. Well, have a good vacation.
Good night, everybody.
It's a month away. I'll see you. I'll talk to you before then.
I'm sure you will.
Yeah. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night, Joe.
Night.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good night.
I'm making a note. All right, thank you, guys.